This is the MHFi podcast with Carl Jensen and Doug Cunnington. We have authentic conversations about the journey to Fi, health, happiness, and some very odd tangents. We interview Fi experts, side hustlers, people on their way to Fi, and those who have reached the other side. Join us every week, and if you want the show notes and links and all that other stuff, head over to milehfi.com. Hey, it's Doug here, and I got back from CampFi recently, and you may remember if you heard the episode from a couple weeks ago where Diana Miriam and Maggie Tucker and myself answered questions from the audience. So we had a blast with that, and CampFi is so much fun. I can't wait to go to week 2 in the Rocky Mountains here coming up in the summer. We recorded another episode. Steven said, "Hey Doug, you want to do some more stuff?" So I scrambled a little bit and I pulled together an idea. Steven fed me the idea, so thanks for that. But basically, I pulled it together and I asked 4 people, actually 5 people, but one couple from the crowd to come up, and we would just do sort of short form interviews, maybe like 10 or 15 minutes or so. And it was a blast. So we have people from various stages of their journey and different interests. And Maggie Tucker from Friends on Fire helped me again. So I needed someone else to sit up there with me since Carl, unfortunately, was absent. He wasn't able to attend this CampFi event, but Maggie stepped up. She did a great job, and I was actually surprised at what good rapport we had together. I felt like she was asking questions that I was thinking and didn't ask right away, and she got in there, so I felt awesome about that. But even better, she was asking questions that I didn't even think of, which of course adds more depth to the whole conversation. So that was amazing. Thanks to Maggie. Be sure to check out her podcast. We'll link up for it in the description. And an even bigger thanks to the people that joined me on stage. So I don't know. I guess I'm getting used to being in front of an audience and recording a podcast and talking. So I didn't think too much of it, which seems silly to say out loud here. But when I would ask people from the audience, I would corner people when they walked over to bust their plate at lunch or breakfast or whatever. So I would watch them walk over, and I'm sure the people are laughing now. I would watch them walk over, and then I would get up strategically and trap them in the corner, and then I would ask them if they would be on the show with us, and we would just ask them some questions. And they were very brave. Some people were like, "Let me think about it a little bit," but people said yes. They came up, they did a great job, and any sort of, fumbling of questions or anything like that was purely, my fault. And I gave this disclaimer in the other episode. The acoustics in that particular room are tough. So I did my very best to record on my studio, an air quotes setup that I could fit in my backpack. And I think it's pretty good most of the time. So if there's any, loud cheering, that's a little loud. So I apologize for that. It will be a little bit loud, but just keep an ear out for it. And I apologize. It's hard to control that kind of stuff. And then the other part is just managing the flow of such a recording. It's a little tougher. Normally it's just Carl and I sitting down here in the basement, and it's very straightforward. But when you have an audience and then you have people walking up and coming up and there's different guests, it's more complex. And that was really the first time that I did anything like that before, and I learned from it. So if there's any, fumbles or mistakes, those are actual fumbles and mistakes. And hopefully I won't make them again, but I learned along the way. So thanks again to everyone that joined us up there. And thanks to Maggie. I'll shut up and send it to the panel, and I'll catch you on the other side here. Welcome to the MHFi podcast. I'm Doug Cunnington, and I'm missing my friend Carl again, but I'm very excited because we're still at CampFi, and we have a live studio audience. And my friend Maggie is here helping me co-host again. How are you today?
I'm good. I was going to say you're minus Carl plus Maggie. I'm not sure what that equals, but...
It's an upgrade. It's definitely an upgrade.
We'll see, yeah.
And
I like Carl, so I'm not going to agree to that, but...
We're going to be chatting with a few folks today. Before we bring on the guests, though, We've had some activities this weekend. Did you have a favorite activity so far?
What's it called? Knockout. Honestly, my favorite activity was I learned how to play knockout from the Indiana crew, contingency back there. And it was really fun. It's like a high-speed, short, quick basketball game. Not even sure how to describe it. You can Google it. It's called Knockout. The Indianans play it. It was a lot of fun. Yeah. But it was all fun.
Fantastic.
Yeah. What about you? Did you have a favorite activity?
Canoeing. Canoeing was pretty good. It was very peaceful.
It was.
I'm not out on the water very often, so it was a little scary. There's a lot of gators around here. That's what I see on the news. There's a lot of gators in Florida, but I luckily haven't seen any here. There was an armadillo. Is that right? There was an armadillo around here?
Yeah, she's got photo evidence of it. It was apparently like this big, or this big. We're not sure which. Somewhere in that range.
Very large.
Yeah.
All right, let's bring on our first guest. We have Tidian. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And for the people that are only listening, they cannot see the small bottle.
Tiny baby bottle.
Yeah, what do you have there? What are you drinking?
Oh, I have a little bottle of bullet bourbon that my wife packed for me very thoughtfully because she
that's
wants
such a
me to
nice
be happy
thing
here.
for her to like put in your luggage.
You know, that and toothpaste. She wanted to make sure I was good.
Yeah. Is that all you brought was that and toothpaste?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
I like it.
I have a very small check-in bag.
I like it.
It's really all you need.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
It's extra funny because there's like full-size liquor bottles about 10 feet away with cups, but you're just walking around with your, I like it.
You know, I got my own style. I've been told
it.
I'm very unique.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
You're unique. So what do you do?
Well, I do all kinds of things. Mostly, I try to not injure myself while learning new things, like bushcraft and blacksmithing. I do electrical work for money. I run my own business and hired myself as an employee, and so far it's been a pretty good relationship. And then, you know, I got a couple of kids that I try to keep alive, and a wife that so far stays with me and
luggage for you.
And packs my luggage for me. So yeah, that's pretty much where I'm at.
Very cool.
Nice.
And when did you become familiar with the FIRE movement or FI or anything like that?
So it was February of 2017. I live in Massachusetts, so February is ice and snow up to your eyeballs. And so my wife decided to go out for a walk, try out some new shoes, and she made it about 50 feet from the house before she slipped on the ice and got a really bad concussion.
Wow.
And it was bad enough that she was told by doctors that she should not look at a screen or read a book or even think too hard for a while, like a month.
Wow. Scary.
Yeah, it was pretty tough. And so she turned to podcasts. She'd always been a saver. I think a lot of people here come from the same mindset of, I've always been a saver, but I don't know what to do with it. And that was pretty much where she was. And so in her podcast search, she ended up finding CampFI in its infancy and got really into that and started listening to it and kind of passed it along to me and said, hey, you should listen to this. And that was kind of my introduction. I was working at a university at the time, and I was looking at about 34 years before I got my pension, feeling pretty underwater about that. And then I heard this podcast that was saying, hey, there's another way, which just totally blew my mind, and I dove in head first.
And how many years ago was that roughly?
That was 2017. That was so she.
I'm gonna need you to do the
it.
math for me. That was
Oh
how
yeah,
many?
sorry. No, I gotta get a calculator for that
I'm like,
though.
you're making this hard, Tidian, but thank you.
Right, these are big numbers. I know.
5 years ago.
I gotta take off my shoes and socks to count that. Yeah, 5 years ago.
Okay.
And then was she, it sounds like you were on board pretty quick. Was she as pumped as you? Were you both on board right away?
Yeah, we were both on board. I think I probably went a little bit more early retirement extreme right away, whereas she was much more realistic about it. She plays along with me a lot of the times with a lot of my harebrained ideas. And so she kind of let me go along with this and just really dive into it full hog.
Like, what was the extreme measures you were doing? Was it tracking your money?
Cutting out
saving?
everything. I just didn't want to spend any money. Every time I spent $1, it hurt my soul. And so it was cutting out all spending and working as much as possible to make as much money as possible. So I was working for an employer, and then I was doing electrical work on the side for my business. And so basically working 7 days a week.
Was it almost like a little obsessive in the beginning because you were so committed?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of how I roll anyways. I get into something and it's my entire world for 6 months until I forget about it.
How'd you end up throttling it back? Did you get to a more kind of even keeled?
Yeah. So, and I think this is kind of an evolutionary process that a lot of us go through in the FI community, is that you find it's everything, you want to put everything you have into it, and then you kind of realize that you've taken away all the good stuff in life. And I was just talking to some folks about this, about how we were completely living for tomorrow and sacrificing today. And I realized that that's not the life that I want to live.
Yeah.
I want to live for today. I don't want to forget about tomorrow, but I also want to live for today. So it was kind of finding that balance of like, we took everything out.
Sorry, we're laughing at Diana's aha. It's like a commercial.
Can you put some of that in my tiny
This
bottle?
podcast is sponsored by Aha Water.
Oh, now I'm thirsty.
I hope that's refreshing. I hope you're enjoying it.
Yes, it better be very good.
So you were making a wonderful point.
Yeah.
Living for
What was it
today,
again?
not tomorrow.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So yeah, we were kind of figuring out that taking away everything sucked. And so we kind of brought back some things, but we were bringing things back mindfully in the sense of, the thing that we're bringing back, is this something that's important to us? Is this something that we get value out of?
Like, name a couple things you took away and brought back.
So we took away all streaming subscriptions, Netflix, all
That's
that. We cut
sad.
our cable bill. It was all other expenses, all the kind of daily stuff that you go about buying. I told my wife we were just going to eat rice and beans for a while, so we cut out our food budget. We cut that down very, very low. And the food kind of sucked for a while. It got boring pretty fast.
Yeah.
And then it was just a matter of kind of realizing that, there are things that you can spend money on that are good to spend money on. And, we started bringing those things back in a little bit at a time.
Probably much more intentionally, I would
Much more
imagine.
intentionally, yes.
Are you at a good balance right now, or are you still trying to find the right zone?
Yeah, I'd say we're in a pretty good balance right now. I think we've gotten to the point where we kind of don't really think about money a whole lot. We know that we put a lot into our retirement accounts, and we know that when we do buy something, we're going to try to get a good deal on it, and we're going to buy things that bring us value. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I was trailing off anyways.
If you don't share numbers like this, feel free to just say next.
Sure.
But do you share, like, on average, what does it cost you and your wife and your two kids to live for a year?
Oh, sure. Yeah. We could very comfortably live on about $40,000 a year.
Wow. That's great.
We're in a fairly low cost of living area. It's not super low cost of living. I mean, I live in New England, so there isn't really any super low cost of living area. But we found our way into an area that is reasonable. We also got very lucky. We bought a house just before housing prices really started going crazy a few years ago. And so we've managed to have some things go in our favor that help us out with that.
Yeah, it's awesome.
And you mentioned a lot of I guess some of them are hobbies, some of them are more vocations. So you mentioned blacksmithing, several other things.
Bushwhacking?
Bushcrafting.
Bushcrafting.
A bushwhack too, every once in a while.
That's bushwhacking. That wasn't even a joke. I just messed the word up, but thanks.
I mean, they're pretty much the same thing. It's just bushwhacking is, you bushcraft when you have bushwhack for a while and then decide that you're going to stay here for a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, if you get really good at whacking bushes
crafting.
out of the way with a machete, it becomes
Now
a
I've
craft.
crafted it. Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Good to know. Good to know.
Exactly.
And I used to watch that show Alone. That's did you watch that?
I love that show.
He was telling me about it by the campfire the other night. Yeah.
That's right.
It's an awesome show.
I've never
So
seen
that's the kind of, what's like your longest that you've gone out, or how
That's
deep into it are you?
way more extreme than where I'm at. I'm still pretty new to it. I mean, I grew up in the woods, so we were always messing around in the woods, but I never really went off and spent a whole lot of time out there. So I'm still, like, I've done overnights and stuff, but I haven't done anything more than that.
And then is there some goal that you're trying to do? Like, do you want to go out for 7 days or something? Is there some specific?
Yeah, I think I would like to spend a good chunk of time out there. I think that mostly I would like to do that for the chance to really test myself and kind of have the time. Because I think one of my favorite parts of that show is that they have this time to really examine themselves and to figure out who they truly are. And in a situation like that, where you're living on next to nothing and you have very minimal tools
Supplies.
and other things. It's, you have to just really get in touch with who you are. You don't have a choice. So I think that's probably my goal, is to just really have a chance to meet myself.
It sounds terrifying.
Yeah, totally.
Not to meet you, for him to meet himself, I think is what he meant, right?
Yeah.
So here's a fun question for you. You are an electrician,
I am.
in case you didn't know. And we were talking about like vocations, you and I earlier, and I think I've made the comment myself, like I know how much I pay an electrician or a plumber or other things, and I think I pay them more than I make, hourly I mean, and so they make good money is my point. And it's a I think often underrated field in many ways. If one of your kids came to you and was truly undecided about whether to go to college or like go to a vocational school to become an electrician, where would you guide them if you had to? If they're really saying, look, Dad, I'm asking for your advice. What should I do?
I don't necessarily see either of my kids as wanting to go into the trades. However, if they were to come to me and say, I really don't know what to do, I think I might want to be an electrician, but I don't really know, I would definitely welcome them into that. And I would say it's a great thing to try out. And, just like anything else, you can try it out and do it for a couple of years, and maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. You can just be an apprentice for a little while and get a feel for it. And, maybe it's horrible and maybe you decide you want to go to college, or maybe you stick with it. But I would certainly encourage people to stick with it. I always like hearing when people are thinking about getting into it. If you have any inclination of working with your hands and being physical, and also some good brain work too. I mean, some of that stuff really, you got to have a good head on your shoulders for some of it. And so if you have any inclination towards that, I think it's a great option.
Yeah, very cool. Have you ever been shocked?
Many times. Yeah, probably too many times.
I have no follow-up question to that. I'm just curious.
Did it hurt? What was it like?
Well, so actually a funny story behind that. So my son got a gag pen where...
I remember those.
Yeah, when you click it, it's supposed to shock you. And he gave it to me. I didn't know what it was. And I clicked it and I started writing with it. And he said, did anything happen? I said, what are you talking about?
I think you might have lost some feeling in your...
Yeah. And he gave it to my wife and she clicked it and she was like, oh, geez, what is that? And he gave it back to me, and I'm like, there's nothing happening.
That's so... You have a little bit of nerve damage.
I think a little bit, yeah.
That's so funny.
Eventually you get to the point where you stop drinking coffee, you just kind of grab a wire in the morning, and it just wakes you right up, really.
Yeah. It explains why when I went to shake your hand, it just sort of like,
Right.
It's like nothing,
Yeah, I don't feel anything.
Nice.
Are there any misconceptions about maybe the trades or an electrician or anything like that, maybe that people just have a misconception of?
Yeah, that for a long time, there's been this idea that vocations are for people who aren't smart enough to go to college. And there's been a real push to have kids go to college because, you don't want to end up a plumber working under somebody's sink. And I think that maybe at first there was the old timers that kind of felt like there was a separation, and, I don't think that's the case. Certainly not anymore. I really think that the trades are a great option really for anybody. And I think it's a respectable trade, a respectable field to go into. And people, like you said, can make really good money doing it. You can have your own business. In fact, it's an incredibly easy way to become an entrepreneur. I mean,
very flexible too, right?
It's
You can
super
kind of
flexible.
like, flex how much you're working around different priorities in life.
And when I went out on my own full time, I had been working part time on the side for a long time. I had a customer base all set up. I had all my tools ready to go already because I had been buying them over the years. And so really the only thing I had to do was buy a vehicle because I was working out of the family vehicle for a while.
Yeah.
And so
lower overhead than some other things you might get into.
And it's not, there was no risk. Like I was going into a job that I already had, and ever since then I've had more work than I know what to do with.
That's awesome.
And we're going to be wrapping up here in a second since we're doing several guests today. But you did a talk. I thought you did a great job.
Thank you.
And I'm curious. A lot of people did ask me about giving my talk, and I saw them asking about you. I guess were you pretty nervous? How was it actually giving the talk, and then how did you feel going through the whole process?
So I'm not a public speaker. I I was just talking with some folks before I got up here that, for the last month, I've been working in an empty house by myself. I haven't seen another person. And then so getting up in front of 60 people and giving a talk that, I felt like I had prepared for a little bit, but I still didn't really know what I was doing. It was terrifying. It's not what I do. And doing the talk itself, I felt good while I was doing it. I was really feeling a lot of emotions in the process of it, which was interesting to me. It was not something that I had expected, but it was really fun to do, and it really felt good to do it. And I know that it's kind of some of the things that we've talked about, like Maggie, in your talk, you're talking about fear, and in my talk, I was talking a little bit about getting out of your comfort zone, and I think the two of them go hand in hand. Yeah. And this was a really big one for me, was to really step outside of my comfort zone, embrace that fear, and just go with it. And it felt amazing to do, I have to say. And I've gotten some good feedback.
You did a great job. I haven't given you any good feedback yet, but you did a really, I know you meant you got feedback from other people, by the way. I was just saying I'm piling on now.
Sure,
but
thank you.
You did a great job. And what's interesting about how nervous you were saying and everything else is it didn't come across at all to me.
Oh, wow, that's great.
So you think you're feeling nervous, but you did fantastic.
I know we had been talking about breathing a little bit and breathing techniques and stuff. I was doing some box breathing beforehand just to kind of prep myself into it, which I think that really helped too.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
You're a good storyteller too. Telling stories helps, I think, a lot.
Definitely. It fills the time.
Yeah.
Thanks very much for joining us up there, or up here.
Did you finish your bottle, Tidian?
No, I have a little bit left
here.
I'm waiting. I don't want to be drinking on the microphone. I think that would be...
That's all right.
Work well.
If you want to. Well, where can people find you?
So I'm mostly active on Twitter at DIY Captain. I occasionally post on Instagram at DIY Captain. I have a blog that I write posts for every 5 years or so at DIY2Fi. That's the number 2. And I imagine I'll probably write another blog post or 2 on there at some point this decade. But yeah, that's pretty much where I'm at.
All right, we'll put links for everybody so they can find it really easy. And thanks a lot.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, now we have Brad and Rebecca joining us.
Welcome.
Good to be here.
Thank you.
What are y'all drinking?
You go first.
Vodka soda.
So mine's very masculine. Watermelon vodka soda. So,
All right.
I like it.
yeah. Really
Cheers.
good, but it's keto friendly, gluten free, the whole 9 yards.
Cheers.
So it's good stuff. Yeah.
And then
I'm drinking water.
water.
It's
I have
delicious.
a weird Gatorade vodka raspberry. I ran out of beer. I don't know what happened. I don't know.
And that kind of weekend.
Yeah. So who are you guys and what do you do?
Take it away, kid.
Okay, I'm Rebecca. My husband Brad. You want to know what we do for our?
Everything. We want to know everything.
Yeah, what do you do for your
this is
job?
my
and then
Social Security.
We'll dig in, yeah.
I'm an accountant for my W-2, and we are on the path to FI using Simple Path to Wealth, index funds, and real estate, and most recently adding some cryptocurrency in there.
Yeah. And I actually was, basically right now I'm like a glorified secretary. I'm doing a lot of stuff. Like I actually was, for about 7 years, I was in law enforcement as like a crime and intelligence analyst. And then I got out and started getting into web development. I figured that wasn't for me. Then I got into Salesforce. Then COVID hit and we started, I was actually coming on board just to help build up our real estate business. And that's what I've been doing. It's like, I kind of play more of like a acquisitions manager. I mean, she's definitely our lead. She's like, as far as everything goes, as far as everything with FI and all the real estate stuff, she's always been the lead. And it's just like, I kind of came in and just did whatever she told me to do. So
That's a safe plan. That's
yeah.
I like that you know and own your place though. Like it's great.
I know. Yeah, I really appreciate that too.
She's taught me well.
Yeah.
So when did you guys first discover FI and how did you get involved in the community?
In 2018, we had no debt. We'd paid off our debt in like 2014, I think. Mm-hmm. And then we moved to Virginia Beach and to Austin. And in that time frame, we stepped up our price, the the way we lived within our means, but we definitely lived larger. And then we ended up moving to Jacksonville. So we barely saved during those couple of years. And then we moved to Jacksonville. We had downsized because we were saving to buy a big house. Yeah. And then so we did that in 2017, and then in 2018 we were doing some house cleaning, and I was like, I'm gonna start listening to some podcasts, and we have money that we have saved. We hadn't saved a whole lot in the last few years, but we had money that we had saved, and it was making very little interest, and we could be doing better, And I was just thinking, like, we're in our mid-late 30s, we should, you start thinking about, am I going to do this for another 30 years? And so I was listening to podcasts, trying to listen to what we could do better, how could I get some better interest on our, then somebody mentioned on one of the podcasts, they mentioned the FIRE movement. And so I Googled that, and that was mind-blowing. Yeah. Yes, exactly. I was just on the couch, oh my gosh, that's a thing. So then I went down the rabbit trail and found Choose a Fi and listened to all the podcasts, started at the beginning, listened all the way through. Was very excited to share all this with Brad. We were ready to go on rice and beans, and
she was ready to go.
Were you quickly on board, Brad, or
I was very reluctant because to me it's just, and I still, to a certain degree, I go through these cycles of just to me, kind of like that whole scarcity mentality. I was looking at FI and just this it seemed very restrictive.
I feel like you were depriving yourself.
Yeah, because I always kind of, and it's kind of silly, but it was just to me, I was always if we go out to a restaurant, I want to just be able to order whatever I want and not worry about
which we had been doing.
And we had been in Austin, we did that a lot, and it's just and then that was just my mindset. I mean, but anytime you have a goal, you have to make some sacrifices in order to get there. But it wasn't honestly what it had taught me is just through the whole FI process is just because if you talk about the financial principles of FI and the things with the numbers, that's just I was running out the door as quick as possible.
We could do the 4% rule. Yeah. That just went right over. That did not work for him.
And I was talking with you, I was listening to Tim Ferriss and stuff like that. It's just about life optimization and time optimization. That aspect of FI is what actually appealed to me. It's just to us, it's just we were wanting more freedom and flexibility. And it's just it's just a tool or a mechanism to get you to that place so you can choose hey, this is the way I want to spend my time. And FI is just kind of a tool to get there. But yeah, it took a little bit because like I said, it's just, there's a few, for me, obstacles. It's just it's more mindset, just to get, I don't know, just kind of getting past those. But it's when the first event we went to was, CampFI here. And it's I think I was telling you, it's just it's more the community and the people is what appealed to me. I'm more of an introvert, but when I get here, it's just I feel like I'm in my element, and it's just the people, actually encourage me. And then it's just the FI principles started to come after that. And I started to gain more interest, after I got exposed to the culture, so the culture was the big thing for me.
I also changed my approach.
So you realized the spreadsheets weren't working.
Yeah.
So what did
But I had spent so much time on the spreadsheets.
Yeah.
I really wanted to share with him and pour. And that was not working for him. So I was coming in a little strong, and I was all in. And so no, I mean, he's very, like he said, what matters to him is, how does he spend his time, and is his time free, and how, he's very focused on being efficient with his time. So I was like, well, if you had more time, what would you do with it? How would you live differently? So I had to approach it from, I had to.
The why, kind of,
yes.
Purpose.
And it doesn't have to be my why, it has to be his why. And that definitely helped our conversations go a lot.
What was the time period of that process from when you discovered it and went down the rabbit hole to getting him fully on board? Was that months or years?
Well, it's probably.
What was it? You started doing
truly, maybe August, September. I started really getting really, really like I had a plan. You
Like
know,
last year? Oh, I was like,
Oh my gosh! Yeah.
Okay, I was like
2018.
Okay, I was like, you seem further along than
Yeah. So, and then I this is just a funny side story, but I listened to the CampFI episode with millionaire educator Jerry Bourne. And he has a 457B. He's a teacher. He has a 457B, which Brad had with the city of Jacksonville, which we were doing nothing with. And it was getting close to the end of the year. And I was so excited about this. I don't know if you guys know about this, but it's like a 401k so it's tax deferred, but you can, when you separate from service, you can withdraw it with no penalty. You get taxed on it, but I think
it's a deferred,
you were talking about it.
It's a type of
Maggie
deferred compensation for a nonprofit. Yeah.
Yes.
Or government.
So I was so excited about that because that fit beautifully into our plans.
You had a spreadsheet for like the math on that. Yes.
Yes. Yeah, I did. You would like to see it? I don't know.
I would love to.
No, like literally what happened, like she was waiting at the door for me when I got home. And she's like, we're going to put all your paycheck into this.
100%.
And I'm just like, what cult are you listening to?
And
It's just like,
prior to this, the week before, I had gotten him to the point where he was like, you know what? I could put 5%. You know, I'm willing to maybe.
What about 100?
Next year we'll put in 10, and how about 100?
Yeah.
Just through the end of the year. but he had, till that was probably a Friday, and I needed the paperwork signed by Monday. And it was a long weekend and an interesting weekend. But he signed it. He was like, I know that you are.
I mean, she's much more intelligent than I am. So it's just like, I trusted her with it.
No, I think he's super intelligent. I mean, he listened. He signed
I think
the
you're
paperwork.
I know what she always says.
Brilliant.
You're both intelligent. You're both very intelligent.
But he did, and I was like, yes, this is gonna happen. But so it really did take truly. I mean, it was a slow process. We came to CampFI, and the people really won him over.
Yeah, that was that. It was 100%. Like I said, it was the culture.
Sure. And then, did you know what you were coming into, Brad, with CampFI? Like, did you know you were going? It was like, hey, just come in the car.
We're going camping.
Yeah, no. I mean, we had definitely talked about it. I looked into it a little bit, but it was more like curiosity. I was kind of curious just to see, but I was very reluctant, to do it. And I wasn't overly thrilled at the same time, but it's more like the curiosity. And I was like, I'll give this a shot.
Honestly, when I first mentioned it, I heard it on the CampFI podcast, and I first mentioned it and I looked at it, I totally did not. I just threw it out there. I did not think he was. And he's like, okay, maybe. I was like,
Yeah.
So, I mean, I didn't have to handcuff him to the car or trick him or anything.
You should have told him about Knockout and how we get to play
I know.
that.
He's been talking about this game.
Yeah.
I have to play
It was
this. I'm
really
so
fun.
sorry
Yeah,
I
yeah.
missed it. I had good conversations.
I have to
though.
give props to the Indiana team. It's
Yeah.
like that was really cool. So, yeah.
So you've shifted a bit over to real estate. It sounds like that's a strong interest. Can you tell us about getting started there and where you're at now with it?
Yeah, so when we were first looking at our numbers, we kind of had like a 10-year plan. So we came to CampFI. Chad Carlin was here, and he does real estate. And we had no intention of doing real estate, anything involved. I mean, that was like, we don't want the call at midnight for the toilets. That was pretty much our thoughts on it.
Oh, yeah.
And we're not super handy, and just had no interest. And still after CampFI, I mean, it was interesting. Chad said something like, well, even my wife changes the light bulbs at our house. So we were like, well, if he can do it, but still had no interest. Somebody from CampFI, after we went home, somebody from Orlando reached out and said, hey, I have a buddy who's selling a house, his rental. I thought you guys might be interested. And, I told him like, maybe sometime down the road, we're just not us right now. But it got me thinking. And once I started thinking about something, I go all in. And so I started reading about it and just thinking, like, what could that do for our FI path? Because, 10 years, if you add in real estate, properties, that can really accelerate it. So started reading about it, talking to him about it. First, again, he not interested.
That was probably even more resistance on my part because I really did not want to do like real estate. I just heard too many horror stories about having real estate property and just, people destroying the places or just like these calls you get at like 2:00. It just didn't appeal to me at all. But, but if she's right, like Chad Carson, the way he presented it, it was like, it actually made, it's like, as the first time I was like, I could see that working. And actually, I played basketball with him too a little bit and he was talking about it. And it's just, really down to earth type guy. And it was just like, oh, okay. And it's just, in the back of the mind, it was, it was kind of activated there, but still just like following through with it. I was like, I don't know.
Yeah. But, it made sense financially for our goals. So we pursued, learning about it. We went to some local RIA classes and really got connected with our local network. And then, we took action because I don't want it to be something that, 5 years from now, we're still talking about.
Yeah.
So, you try it. And honestly, in 2019 and in the areas we were buying, the price point was not that horrible. So we were like, well, if it doesn't work, it's not the end of the world. We can make this up. So we started making offers, and it was all very terrifying.
Yeah.
How many properties do you have now?
6 properties, seven units.
Okay.
Yeah. So we bought one at the end of 2019. When we started thinking about it seriously, like April, May of 2019. So we closed at the end of October. Did a full rehab on that, converted it from like a 2.2 to a 3.2, added some square footage by enclosing a laundry room and rented it out, had our first tenant March of 2020. And but that all turned out good. We bought 2 more houses in 2020 and 3 more, including a 2-unit last year. And one thing that we did do is we have a property manager because, with what his concern about it. And I've told a couple of people this, and when you talk to people about getting into real estate, there are people who are absolutely believe in it, 100%. And there's so many people who have done well in real estate. So it's a well-proven path. But a lot of people will tell you, don't even consider it. It's horrible. They're going to ruin your properties, get burnt out, and just trying to get out of it. And 99% of those people self-manage. Not to say that there aren't people who self-manage and do a wonderful job, but the likelihood of being burnt out seems to be a lot greater on the people who self-manage, and I just didn't want it to be that. So that was part of the deal, is we have a property manager.
Well, and especially while you're still working, right? It might be different if you weren't. So you mentioned early on, or earlier, that you were about 10 years from FI before you got into rental properties. How much has that shortened, or do you have a sense of your path?
The goal now is 2025, so it's about 7 years. It could probably be accelerated, but I think it's cut off
but the
3
rental
years.
properties has sped up the journey financially.
Yes, and it just diversifies it. Now we can draw down on index funds, and we have rental income, and it accelerates the process, and it's more diversification. So. We're pretty excited.
Awesome.
Any big mistakes along the way?
Not getting started sooner.
Yeah.
What Maggie said and what Tidian said, there's fear the whole process. It's like getting into real estate. Even getting into the whole FI, it's different. Your family isn't doing it. That's why it's good to surround yourself with people like this.
Yeah, and I was going to say, I appreciate what you said this morning. It's just you're scared, like you said, you get scared. I do the same thing. I'm scared all the time, and I get those moments doing this where it's just I have no freaking clue what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Even though we're on to the 7th door, and it's just I feel like if people peeled back, they'd see I'm a fraud. But I think, a lot of people, it's the imposter syndrome.
Yeah,
it's just
totally.
everybody kind of struggles with that. Mm-hmm. But it's just still, you just learn as you go. You're not going to do everything right, but you just do your best, and it's been working out. It's just been it's been good. But yeah, I'm scared all the time. Especially I have no skills as a contractor or handyman. So when I'm trying to assess a property as far as how much the repairs are going to cost, and then we have to put an offer on it, it's just I'm am I making the right call here? We figuring out the numbers right. So yeah, there's almost every step has a little bit of fear to it.
Yeah.
So
It's not like we live in fear. It sounds really horrible.
No, but it's
But it is like every step is scary. Buying the property, working with the contractors, getting your first tenant in there, even refinancing. So we do the BRRRR process, and so you're buying in cash, and then you're refinancing and doing the refinances for the first time. Because honestly, we have been renters our whole life, so this was our first time even buying properties.
Oh, even your
Yes.
own. That's so interesting. Yeah.
Yes, so it was doubly, just-
And what's the BRRRR process for people who don't know?
Oh, it's buy. So you're buying, you're rehabbing, you're then renting the property out, and then you're refinancing it. So basically, you have increased the value, and you pull your money back out of it. And so we've actually it's worked amazingly, and we have we've been able to pull almost all of our money back out and be able to redeploy it. So it's been amazing.
Also, Doug, it's pronounced burr. You gotta lean into it a little.
Little
Lean
harder.
into it. Look, roll your R's on the end of it.
Yeah.
So we're wrapping up your section here, but thanks for joining us.
yeah.
And you guys don't blog, or no one can follow you anywhere, right?
They cannot
Nowhere.
follow us. Nowhere.
Yeah.
So, but you guys
Totally stealth.
organize
We don't exist.
some of the meetings in the Jacksonville area, is that
do.
right? Do you want to talk about that a bit?
Yeah, we just we're trying to do stuff monthly, and we do, we're wanting to incorporate a speaker every quarter, but a lot of times we'll just meet up, we'll have potlucks or, things at people's houses.
Are these
We'll go to-
FI meetups? Or-
Yeah, we're just
Okay. For the
we have
local.
off the Facebook page, the,
Okay.
the Jacks Choose FI, and we'll go to coffee houses, breweries, stuff like that. We'll just have meetups at different parts of the city. Like we just did one was the hiking, and then we went to have coffee afterwards. So
That's so cool.
We like breweries. We're a big fan of breweries. But it is like a mini CampFi every month. So
Yeah, that's awesome that you proactively do that. So.
yeah,
And that's the Choose FI Facebook group for the Jacksonville.
for the Jacksonville area.
Okay,
Yeah.
so if people are in the area, you can check that out. We'll link up to it so
absolutely.
folks can find it.
Yeah,
Thanks.
100%.
Yeah.
Good deal. Thank you
Yeah,
guys.
thank you both.
Travis, how's it going?
Great, yeah.
Doing awesome, and you probably know the question I'm going to ask, so I probably should have let everyone know. Who are you and what do you do?
All right. My name's Travis, and I travel full time. I hit my FI number back in 2017, and I've been traveling for about 3 years full time now, and just enjoying FI life and
Yeah.
just taking it easy, life of leisure.
Tell us what you travel in, Travis.
I have my 2004 Toyota Tacoma. So for the most part, I stay either in Airbnbs or hotels. During the summertime, I'll do some camping. I have my tent and sleeping bag and blow-up mattress in my truck, and so it makes it very easy to travel around. And it's the pre-runner, so I can kind of get up and into some hills and stuff where most RVs can't go. So it gives me a little more flexibility that way. So.
When did you first discover the FI movement?
First discovered back in 2013, and weirdly enough, it was my worst year of income, and so I was kind of struggling along keeping my travel business going at the time, and ended up running across Retired by 40. That ended up leading me into Mr. Money Mustache, and kind of realizing everything that I was doing, just being frugal by nature and saving my money, it just kind of created a very good structure to what I was doing. Kind of gave me a defined path of what I wanted to do, but I was making so little money that I couldn't do much at that point. But within the next couple of years, I was able to get my income up significantly and hit my FI number very quickly after that.
And you and I have done similar work, so I do some affiliate marketing, I have some websites. So can you talk about that a little bit? How did you get started with affiliate marketing? And you still do that currently and have some income coming in that way, right?
Right. And my very first job while I was still in college was helping to build a travel website and just booking hotels in Mexico. And so this was back before the days of Google. It was Alta Vista and Yahoo search. And so nobody really knew search engine optimization at that time. And so I was the designated one, got paid $10 an hour to figure that out. And so I kind of got that skill set early, and then started to use that to build different type of sites outside of the travel industry, since that is a very volatile industry. So,
Cool. And then once you discovered FI and your income was going up, did you like go all in? You were like, I want to retire as soon as possible. Or okay.
Yeah.
Talk about that a little.
Since the travel industry, I went from like, to give actual numbers, went from about $150,000 income down to like 30,000. So it was, as I was, supposed to be building my career, I was going down instead. And so just like having, that happen, in 2009, 2010 timeframe, once I actually had that money coming in, I just wanted to at least get to the like lean FI number. Like I couldn't do any sort of like coast FI. I just wanted to hit something that I knew that no matter what, if the industry went down again, whatever happened, I had like enough money to survive.
And then you've been traveling for a while.
Right.
So how many years have you been on the road?
Next week will be 3 years.
Did you think it was going to be that long?
No, I figured, I wasn't sure how long it was going to be. I sold my house and didn't know if it was going to be 3 months, 6 months, a year, and finally get tired of it. But 3 years later, and I'm still enjoying it. So.
You also like picked up a hitchhiker along the way, right? I'm calling your girlfriend a hitchhiker, by the way. Like you got a travel partner that came along, right?
Right. So yeah, end of last year, I met somebody online and we started to, text back and forth, and then at the CampFI in January was our first time actually meeting in person. So we had a few days that we got to spend together, and then after that we started traveling together. So yeah.
That's pretty cool.
CampFI love story.
I know, Steven, this is a new angle you could put
you didn't know,
it.
yeah. So, yeah.
You didn't know people were using this as a meetup spot.
Right.
Like if it doesn't work out with you, there might be some other eligible, I'm glad it worked out though. Yeah. Congratulations.
So.
And then can you talk about some of the travel and maybe how you planned it or how you do plan it? It's just a long time on the road. Yeah. So what happens? Actually, let's go back to when you first went out on the road.
Right.
Like, where were you heading?
All right. So.
Were you scared? You were going out alone, right? At the time?
Actually, at the time, I had my dad living with me. And
okay.
So when I sold my house, back when I was, early teens, I used to travel up to Utah with my dad, and we kind of have our summer vacations together. And so once I sold my house, we kind of took a nice big road trip, went up to Washington State, kind of down through California, all the way down into Arizona, and back up to Utah. So it just kind of made a nice big loop out of it, and traveled with him for a little while, and then went off on my own. So.
Okay. So let's say, fast forward somewhere in the middle of it. How do you plan your days and your travels?
Right. So the number one thing is the weather. So I do not like the cold whatsoever. So I try to stick with warm weather. And so, that's the number one thing. But I like, mostly visiting national parks, state parks. And there's a lot of state parks that are, just as nice, if not nicer than some of the national parks. And people tend to miss those. So traveling the way I do, I can, find those little spots and, even though I may not have intended to visit one of those areas, I stopped by and ended up spending a whole day there, and I have the flexibility to stay there and get a hotel that night around the area. So.
And it's not, so you don't do a lot of pre-planning, like you kind of, if you like a spot, you stay, if you don't, you keep moving.
Exactly, yeah. It makes it nice that, can have that flexibility. Normally when I book an Airbnb, those have to be long enough, like at least a week, normally 2 weeks, in order to make the fees and everything worth it. So those are kind of hit and miss, but if I'm booking hotels, I'll just book one night at a time. So.
That approach to travel for me is like exhilarating / terrifying of like not knowing where.
Yeah, it seems like it, but it was actually, caused more stress and anxiety when I booked several nights ahead.
You had
because
to be
then,
somewhere
I had to be to that next
yeah.
place, whereas wherever I get to that night, just pull out my phone, book a hotel, and show up. I can literally do it from the hotel parking lot, and by the time I walk inside, they have the reservation, and that's it. So
if you're comfortable sharing, on average, over your 3 years of traveling, what do you spend? I assume you track your expenses. What are you spending roughly, and is it pretty consistent?
Kind of. At numbers-wise, easiest way to track it is each year I'll see what my net worth is. I've been kind of tracking my withdrawal rate, and so the first year I set out, I wasn't willing to spend as much money as kind of terrifying that way. I'm actually spending this money because I had my house free and clear, so my expenses were very low when I first set out, and And so the first year I was just under 2% that I spent. And so and plus I had the website and stuff bringing in money, so I never actually spent that. Investment money is just like if I were to be withdrawing off my investments, that's what it would have been. And then last year I was all the way up to 2.35%. So it's like I'm trying to spend more, but even doing everything I have been doing, it's been great. And I don't feel like I'm skimping anywhere, and it's still not costing that much. So.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
Have you gotten burned out on the road? And if so, what do you do?
Yeah, a few times. The last time, last year, as summer was coming on, a lot of people were traveling. They finally got over, the scare of COVID, and they just, were so tired of being cooped up that they decided to get out and travel. And so, roads were getting busier, and it was getting more frustrating trying to, find hotels that weren't, a bunch of people around. And so, finally decided to rent a place in Tennessee for 6 months. It was the first time I had signed a lease and rented something since 2005. And so it worked out great though, because that house developer had bought it, and they were getting ready to actually tear it down and build out that property. Is on 25 acres. And so they were going to build out that property with townhomes. But until they actually got all the permits and the rezoning and everything done, they wanted to see if they can get a renter in there. So they got a 6-month lease and stayed there. So got to spend the summer there. And a couple other times I started to burn out. I stayed with my mom down in Texas and stayed there for a couple of weeks, and normally 2 or 3 weeks in one place. And then I'm ready to go. I'm actually excited to go again.
Yeah. And then you're in a truck, right?
Right.
A lot of people get camper vans or something bigger.
Right.
Why haven't you taken that step? Why are you still in the truck?
Right. Well, first off, it's been a good truck. Never had any major issues with it, even though it's 17 years old now. It's never caused any big issues for me. But back in 2020, I rented a minivan, a Dodge Grand Caravan, and ideally that's probably what I would have, but that worked out perfectly. I was actually traveling with somebody at the time, and even with 2 people, we just put the seats down, had the blow-up mattress in the back, still had plenty of room between the mattress and the back of the seats, and could put stuff up on the front seats while we were sleeping. There was plenty of room. So for all these big our motorhomes or the decked out Sprinter vans that are $100,000 or whatever, I don't find those necessary. Just just regular minivan was plenty. And so, and even my truck just, it causes me to stay in more hotels and stuff, but it's still a whole lot cheaper than, other options.
All right. And as we wrap up here, do you have any upcoming travel? What are you looking forward to in the next few months?
Let's see, just before COVID hit, I was hoping to hike the Camino de Santiago in Spain. I was planning that in January, February of 2020 for, was it May? That would have been the next good time to go. And then March happened and killed those plans. But let's see, at the end of April, I'm going to go on a cruise with my girlfriend and some of her family, and it leaves out of Denmark and Copenhagen. And then that'll kind of kick off some European travel. So.
Awesome.
Nice.
Very cool. And then final question here, for people that are thinking about maybe getting on the road and they're a little scared, do you have any tips for them about pulling the trigger or anything like that?
Yeah, it's not as scary as you would think it is. It's a lot of friendly people. I very rarely run across anybody that causes any issues. It's and you can do it with a lot less than what you think you need. Like I said, with the RV, you don't need big fancy rig or anything. You can try it out, rent a minivan for a week-long weekend and see whether you like it or not. And it's actually not that difficult to get started. So.
Do you feel relatively safe on that note?
Yeah, and actually, that's one thing that a minivan feels safer. So instead of being in a trailer that you're pulling, if something does happen that you're back in your trailer and you want to be able to drive away, you don't, in a minivan you can just go up and get in your driver's seat and take off. You never have to get outside. So safety-wise, that would be better than being in a trailer that's tow behind. So.
Have you ever had a situation where you wanted to drive away though?
No, I've never had any issues.
Good.
Yeah.
Scary.
That continues. Yeah.
So.
All right, thanks, Travis. Appreciate it.
Great, thank
Thanks,
you.
Travis.
So thanks for joining us. Can you tell us who you are and what you do and what you're up to right now?
Sure. Thank you for having me. My name's Carlin. I'm here at CampFI having a great time. These days I'm making a lot of mac and cheese. I left my job last fall and have been on what I'm calling a sabbatical, or what I plan to be a sabbatical, but I'm really enjoying the whole not working phase of my life so far.
I love that the lead for how you spend your time not working is making a lot of macaroni and cheese. Like, I feel like we need to
Let's
double
talk
click
about
on
it.
that in some way. Like, why is that where you go first?
Oh, so I found this recipe. Obviously, it's Martha Stewart, right? Because it's perfect mac and cheese, let's be honest. But
Yeah.
I found it a few years ago, and my family was adamant that we didn't want any more like soft stuff like for our Thanksgiving meal. But I was like, no, you guys have to try this mac and cheese. It's like out of this world. So I made some, and they had it, and they're like, now we have to have it all the time. So my friends, my family, I've been making a lot of it in my spare time these days.
What did you think of the macaroni and cheese tonight that we had?
I thought it was delicious.
Where would you rate that versus like your mac and cheese?
Yeah, I didn't have to make it, so like right up
Yeah,
there.
yeah. I'm the same way. If someone else, yeah. But you
sorry?
think you could like beat it if we were doing a competition?
Well,
like,
I mean, no, I don't
I mean,
know.
it's just
It was
between
delicious.
us. I wasn't knocking the mac and cheese. I was just comparing it to like how awesome yours probably is.
Yeah, it was pretty good. I was about to get seconds, and then I had to remind myself that I've already eaten like crazy while I've been here this weekend. So like,
I think we all have.
know.
So
I want to make sure my shorts fit tomorrow. Do you know what I mean?
And we'll get the link for the recipe, by the way, because I think everyone's pretty interested. I love mac and cheese too.
All right.
So when did you first discover the FI movement?
Well, it's actually really interesting. I had kind of a cherry problem when I came across the FI movement, but I've always had an interest in personal finance. Even when I was in college, my sisters and I had our own lawn mowing business, Sisters Lawn Service. I know, really exciting.
great name.
Yeah, we wanted to, make our own money and like kind of make our own decisions. And I never really wanted to go to college, but thanks, Mom. She kind of forced me into that. And during college, I learned from my HRM, or Human Resources Management professor, that a very small percentage of companies are offering defined benefit plans and 401k, that sort of thing. And she encouraged me to go to a small talk. And in this talk, they talked about compound interest and what it can do for you, right? So you're picturing the chart that you start down here, and then all of a sudden you're like, do. And as you're contributing more and more, you can really do well for yourself. So once I graduated college, I found David Bach's book, which is, if I can remember correctly, called Smart Women Finish Rich. And that was like my first foray into learning about personal finance. And then my first full-time job out of college, I was only making $28,000. So like the large part of my, last 15 years of my career has been spent, making a pretty marginal increases along the way in promotions and whatnot. But in 2018, when I learned about FIRE, my cherry problem was that, I earned this massive bonus at work. I had come a long way from where I was at the 28K, and I need to figure out where to put it. And I didn't know because I was already maxing out everything I could in my tax advantaged accounts. So along comes the FIRE movement, and I found some avenues through research that I could use to, invest the money. And that really helped me to get a leg up. And it, I guess the rest is history, as they say.
Yeah. So you were doing pretty good beforehand. So how far along were you in 2018 where you were like, oh shit, I can retire in like 3 years or something?
Yeah, I was fortunate that like I could see the end of the runway in 2018. And even though at the time, I wasn't crazy about my job, I decided to keep going because, I thought, wow, this is going to allow me so much more freedom once I get to the point where, I reached FIRE. And that was really exciting for me to think that I could actually do that. It was just like the possibilities, right? So I kept going and then finally reached it during the pandemic. And not long after, I decided to leave conventional work, or W-2 work as we call it.
Right. So you were pretty far along, hit your 5 point, and you left sort of dramatically, and I want you to tell that story. Can you tell us what your job was? You could just say the title.
Sure. Yeah, I worked in enterprise software sales for a multinational conglomerate. It's an interesting story because I think a lot of people can relate. Let's see, after about 5 years working there, I had the unfortunate incident of losing one of my friends from high school. He died tragically in a helicopter crash. And so for me, that really opened my eyes to, why am I waiting to pull the trigger? Because that was really hard for me to see that and go through that. And then it wasn't long after that I lost a family member that was really important to me. So I asked for some time off, and my boss then, my supervisor then, was new in the role, and fortunately he was kind enough to give me some time off. And I, was checked out. I really needed that time for myself.
This is paid time off, to clarify,
yes.
too, right? This isn't like
yes.
he gave you. You're taking your own vacation that you've earned, and yes.
Yeah, exactly,
exactly.
So I took the time, and I didn't check my email, and I got back, and I'll never forget this. The day I got back, he said, "I'm so disappointed in your level of communication." And I thought, it just hit me like a ton of bricks, and I thought, I can't stay here anymore.
That's why I was clarifying. It was paid. You were on vacation. What do you mean?
Right. Yes, it was paid vacation. I'm sorry. I guess I didn't say that. But very quickly, I turned in my resignation. There was a going away party the next day. I think it was a Wednesday. I'm pretty sure it was a Wednesday. And by Friday, I was gone. They didn't let me work out my notice. They basically paid me to leave. Obviously, the company I worked for was, interested in intellectual property, and there's probably a competitive situation that they were concerned about. I don't really know, but it was very abrupt and frankly very painful for me to exit that way, because I didn't really get a chance to give a proper goodbye, I guess. After the going away party, everybody was kind of talking about it. But
did he know that that's why you were leaving, that was sort of the final straw, or did you kind of keep that piece discreet?
Oh no, I didn't hold much back. We had a very frank conversation, and I wish him all the best. It just, at that point, I knew, I was like, I need to move on.
Yeah.
The
reason I was curious if he knew is because I was curious if he accepted that feedback and understood why that might be an odd thing to lead in with after someone goes on paid time off after going through some tough personal things. And
interestingly, he was aware of these things, and that was the reason why I wanted to take the time. I do believe that HR probably had a conversation with him after that, and maybe some coaching or training was offered. I'm not sure, but I didn't hang around to find out.
Not your problem anymore. Yeah. So you've been gone for about 6 months?
Yes.
Walk us through those 6 months, like your feelings, just what you've been up to, but also just like emotionally, how's that been?
Sure. So the first week I was a basket case. I'll be honest. I was very emotional. I didn't expect to be. I thought I would be hugely relieved, but the way that it all happened, and it happened so quickly, I was a bit I don't even know
grieving?
The word.
Or?
I think I was just, I don't know how else to say it. I was a bit of a mess, and so it took me probably about 3 months to decompress, because right off the bat, I was thinking about my apartment and where I was living and then making those arrangements. So, I got rid of my apartment. I downsized. I sold all of my stuff very intentionally. I was like, I'm so grateful for you, desk. I'm so grateful for you, dresser. And I'm like, I hope you enjoy it, new owner. I definitely went through that whole process, and I was really happy that I could move on from the environment that I was in to something different. And I guess the next thing for me, which was moving out of my apartment, I put a very small amount of stuff into storage, and then loaded everything else in my car. I moved in with my sister, who graciously let me stay in her condo, and now they're selling their place today. So they actually got some offers, so they're pretty excited. And so now I'm just traveling and enjoying life. It's amazing how when you leave an environment that isn't right for you, you just take a deep breath, I guess. And I felt like I finally did that after a few months. I lost 15 pounds without even really trying that hard. So I thought, wow, this is definitely a different environment. I just feel better, I feel like I have energy again. I'm sleeping through the night again, and I love that. So
yeah, you look good. You're very I just talked to you earlier for kind of the first time since we've been here.
Yeah.
And you're just very calm and present, and you seem just in a very good serene state.
Yeah.
And you don't get that vibe from everyone, so something's
thanks.
working. Retirement looks good on you.
Oh, thank you.
So if you didn't have to quit in such an unfortunate way, when do you think you would have left? So you hit Phi at some point, you were hanging around. Were you just going to keep
I
working
was
for a
itching
bit?
to pull the trigger, to be honest.
Okay.
Yes.
You like looking for something?
Yeah, I believe it or not, before that had even happened, I had told my landlord, I was like, I'm moving out. Like, I'm going to be gone, right? And I already started packing stuff up and preparing because I knew I wanted to do something different and I didn't know exactly where I wanted to be. But I left all that behind to just create space for something new and different.
And it sounds like you're going to start doing some other stuff. Like, do you know what you're going to get into coming up?
Yeah, I have a few things planned. The last few months I've spent traveling a bit and visiting friends and family that I haven't been able to see for a long time. So that's been really fulfilling. And here in the next few months, I'm going to be doing a lot of traveling. I've got Airbnb set up and going to Portugal, which is exciting. I had put that off for a while and I'm finally going to get to go for about a month. So I'm really excited about that. And then when I get back, I'll be looking at some investment opportunities for the future.
Yeah. Can I give a plug for your Portugal trip?
Yeah, sure.
Sort of anyone listening knows our rich journey
Yes.
and wants to hook her up so that she can meet. Do you know them?
Amon and Christina,
yeah.
please email me.
She wants to say hello while she's in Portugal.
That's
big
right.
fan. I'm also a big fan. I just won't be in Portugal with you. So. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
There are people who will come join you on your Portugal
That's
trip.
right.
So.
Awesome. Very cool. And do you have any more questions?
No, I'm just trying to set her up for Portugal. I'm good.
Perfect.
My job's done here.
And there's nowhere people can follow you, right?
No, not right now.
All right. Well, this has been amazing. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah,
did a
thank you for
wonderful
having
job.
me.
Yeah, good luck. I'm excited to hear what comes in the coming months. So.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll start shutting it down here. Maggie, you just have a few weeks left of work, right?
I have 18 working days left.
Yeah.
I am excited, but I've had this conversation with a few people who seem to be able to relate. It's oddly kind of stressful and anxiety-ridden in these last few weeks and months, and so it's just a weird time in both of our lives. And my husband and I talk about it a lot, that you'd think we'd be like ecstatic that something amazing is, a month away, but we're a little like, there's a lot of feelings and emotions happening lately. Probably mostly on my end.
Yeah.
But,
do you have like butterflies, like that kind of anxious,
Well,
like wake up in the middle of the night?
No, more like I just have a lot of stuff I have to do.
Okay.
And it's just sort of it's almost like the opposite of the calm before the storm. This is the storm before the calm, I hope. So I'm trying to like keep my head down and get through it. So.
And do you have like the first couple days just mapped out? I'm curious, just to make sure that you are like chilling out and stuff, or is it just open?
It's just kind of open. I mean, the day right after our last day, I have to get up ridiculously early and drive like an hour to run a 5K with my daughter's running group. So I'm like really not. I was gonna sleep till noon or something. But no, we've got a couple weeks off while the kids are still in school, and so we've got a couple weeks of just like laziness and
Well, that is
I
awesome.
watch Alone that Tidian was talking about. It's on my. I
You
got
get
some
hooked.
to-dos like TV to-dos.
It's very good.
Yeah.
Well, where can people find you?
People can find me if you're looking here, Friends on Fire. We have a podcast that you can find anywhere you listen to podcasts, or on our website, friendsonfire.org, or on Instagram.
Perfect. We'll link up to it, and thanks so much for your help. This was great.
Thanks for having me.
So thanks again to everybody that joined me on the panel, especially thanks to Maggie. Check out her podcast, Friends on Fire. And I think if this is being published at the date that I have it scheduled right now, Maggie just has a couple days left of work. So she put in her notice several months ago, and so did her husband. So I think they're almost done, and they are going to take a little time off, which is very, very exciting. So congratulations to Maggie and Greg. That's fantastic. And I'm trying to think if there was anything else. Oh yeah, just CampFI in general. These are not paid spots or anything like that. I just like CampFi. Steven has done a great job putting this stuff together, and he's kind enough to let me, take over and record in the evenings, which was really a surprise. I thought I would get one day, but again, he asked me if I wanted to do more, which was super cool, and I got to speak there. And I was honestly afraid that people would be sick of hearing from me, but a lot of people did show up. And that made me feel good. So thanks to Steven. And if you're interested in CampFis, they're all over the country. There's a link in the show notes here so you can check it out, see if one of the dates works for you. Some of them may appear to be sold out. And if they are, but you want to go to that one, I think you can still get on a wait list. The reality is people's schedules change all the time. Something will come up and sometimes a spot will open up that you'll be able to take. So if there is a particular camp that you think is, the one you want to go to, or it's closer or more convenient in some way, then get on the wait list. Even if it looks like it's sold out, you might be able to pull it off and make it out there. So thanks again to everyone involved. CampFis are great, and we'll catch y'all in the next episode. Thanks for listening to the show. That was the Mile High Fi podcast, and I'm Doug Cunnington, the balder host, and Carl Jensen is the cool, sexy one. If you dig the show, please do 3 things for us. Number 1, tell a friend, a family member, an enemy about the show. We really don't care who you tell. Maybe forward them a specific show that you know that they will like. It's the single most helpful thing that you can do to spread the word. It's like giving us a virtual high five, and actually we don't give high fives in person, so the virtual kind's pretty good. And more importantly, your friend or family member or even your enemy will appreciate the fact that you were thinking of them. Number 2, make sure you're following or subscribed on your podcast app, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Overcast, YouTube, whatever you're using, and that way you won't miss a show. And number 3, please leave us a rating and review. We read them on the show occasionally, and you might hear yours out there on an upcoming episode. Quick disclaimer. This show is not financial or legal advice. I'd actually be surprised if it sounded like it. It's really just for entertainment, and that's at least what we're hoping for. But seriously, get advice from professionals. Carl and I are just 2 guys with microphones that sit in my basement and talk. So we'll catch y'all next week.